This is CNN Headline News Second Watch. I'm Judy Fortin. Thanks for joining us today. Our top story is the changing of the guard in the nation's capital. With his wife and daughters by his side and his parents looking on, George W. Bush was sworn in as the 43rd President of the United States this afternoon. In his inaugural address, Mr. Bush outlined his priorities, including educational reform, overhauling Social Security and Medicare, a stronger defense, and a tax cut. And he borrowed a theme his father used 12 years earlier when he took office, a call for more community service. He says compassion is the work of a nation, not just a government.
Today we affirm a new commitment to live out our nation's promise through civility, courage, compassion, and character. America at its best matches a commitment to principle with a concern for civility. A civil society demands from each of us goodwill and respect, fair dealing, and forgiveness.
Earlier, Vice President Dick Cheney was sworn in. His plans for this afternoon include participating in the inaugural parade and attending inaugural balls tonight. The cold and rain didn't stop tens of thousands of people from gathering near the U.S. Capitol building and along the National Mall for a glimpse of the inauguration. Most were bundled up and many carried umbrellas. Thousands of people are in Washington to protest the inauguration. Police say they have arrested half a dozen people near the inaugural parade route and charged them with disorderly conduct. One police officer is said to have been hurt in a clash with other demonstrators. The protesters represent groups ranging from the National Organization for Women to the Justice Action Movement. After taking the oath of office, President Bush's first official act was to sign the nominations of his cabinet members. The Senate leadership has indicated 7 Bush cabinet nominees will be approved by voice vote today. Among them are Secretary of State nominee Colin Powell, Defense Secretary nominee Donald Rumsfeld, and Treasury Secretary nominee Paul O'Neill. Freshman Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton probably will not vote on the confirmations. She will be spending the day with her husband, the outgoing president. President Bush may have an opportunity to reshape the U.S. Supreme Court during his administration. Charles Bierbauer has the story.
Oyez, oyez.
The Supreme Court was a campaign issue, not because of the unexpected role it would play ending the election's long count, but because of the power of the next president to name future justices. There's been no new face on the court for 7 years. Justice John Paul Stevens is 80, Chief Justice Rehnquist 76, and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor 70. Increasing the odds, President Bush may select several justices who could affect the court's majority on such divisive issues as abortion.
An anti-choice president plus John Ashcroft plus a Supreme Court they helped shape equals a recipe for disaster.
Civil rights and affirmative action, church and state, school vouchers.
I would hope that the next nominee will not be somebody seen as a polarizing factor or somebody who is seen as pushing the Supreme Court into a political or ideological mold.
As a candidate, Bush denied any litmus test for justices, but named 2 court conservatives, Scalia and Thomas, as his models.
People who will strictly interpret the Constitution and will not use the bench to write social policy.
If he does nominate someone like Scalia or Thomas, the opposition will be unprecedented in the history of this country.
Yet if Chief Justice Rehnquist were to retire, might the president be tempted to name Scalia chief and fill the vacancy with someone like Appeals Court Justice Emilio Garza? Opponents would have to challenge the first Italian-American chief and the first Hispanic justice.
Nobody's going to get a free pass in the United States Senate, no matter who they are. Not because of their religion, their race, their sex, or anything else.
Choosing Supreme Court justices is inevitably a political act, though Chief Justice Rehnquist hopes the court's recent involvement in politics won't be repeated. For now, the current justices all seem healthy, spirited, and engaged in their work, and there's no promise any will retire just yet. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, the Supreme Court.
Former President Bill Clinton had a few moments in the limelight as he prepared to leave Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. He's spending his first evening in retirement in Chappaqua, New York. Mr. Clinton offered special thanks to the men and women in the armed services. And he joked with his supporters, even though he's left the White House, he's still around. In one of his final acts as president, Bill Clinton pardoned more than 100 Americans. They include former Housing Secretary Henry Cisneros, who pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor in connection with charges he lied to the FBI about payments to a former mistress. And Mr. Clinton's former Whitewater business partner, Susan McDougal. Also receiving pardons were Patty Hearst, the 1970s kidnap victim who went to prison in connection with a bank robbery, and Mr. Clinton's brother Roger, who was convicted of a drug charge. President Clinton also pardoned former CIA chief John Deutsch, who could have faced criminal charges in connection with the mishandling of national secrets on his home computer. The list of pardons did not extend to another Whitewater figure, Webster Hubbell, or to one-time Wall Street financier Michael Milken. An education